nice. I will stop Spotify now. Let's see if people can see us. Hey guys, it seems we're live. I know we have a minute. Maybe we'll wait for a minute just for people to come in. And so I know we have a couple of questions and cool things for Jordan to talk about today, specifically around resume review. But Jordan, how are you? Oh, doing the usual. It's absolutely gorgeous out there. Well, actually a bit windy in Sparks, Nevada. You know what this is? This is Lake Tahoe. I know. I'm trying to get people to come over to Reno and have fun here. Cause right? I should probably have come to Reno, explore. Um, yeah. So I know. Let's get started. So what I like to do first is thanks guys for joining today. This is the Disclosed resume review series with Jordan at Microsoft. So before we get started, I have a couple of ground rules to go over. I know the boring stuff, but let's go through them. The first one is this advice is endorsed by the individual, not by the company. The second one, this is supposed to be a safe space so that we can discuss resumes and we can actually have open and honest conversations with each other. So you're getting an insider view of a one-on-one between Jordan and me. And the third one, it's not really a ground rule, but maybe a clarification. So Jordan has been part of the hiring process. He might not be the hiring manager, but he for sure has been critical to the hiring process. So in terms of him screening resumes, Jordan, you've rejected resumes as well, right? Yes. So that's why I've invited Jordan over to have an open and honest conversation with all of us. So how the session is going to work, we're going to spend maybe five minutes of introductions. Jordan's going to introduce himself, what he believes as an ideal candidate at Microsoft to be, or ideal person to be at Microsoft to be. And then we're going to get into the meat of the talk. So we're going to go straight into the resume review session where Jordan will screen share what he has on his screen, which are the resumes that have been chosen to be reviewed today. We're going to follow his cursor as he's muted himself, and we're going to follow where he, takes a look at and where he prioritizes throughout the whole resume. And then we're going to have a really fun discussion around tangible advice on how to improve resumes. We're going to end with closing thoughts and actually Q&A. So feel free to pop your questions down there on the chat. We'll try to get through them. If we can't, then Jordan, are you okay with maybe a post afterwards to address some of the questions? Oh, okay. It seems like people cannot hear you. Give me 1 second. That is probably, give me 1 second. It is probably me. Ooh. Let's see. Sorry guys, I know. I can't, okay, I hear you guys. You can't hear Jordan. Let me try to get something in. All right, let me know if you can. Can you guys hear him? No, it doesn't seem like it. Oh no! It's only picking up audio from my mic. You know what? Let's do something. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna call into the Google Meets through my phone, and let's see if this works. Okay. Of course. Okay. Can you hear Jordan now?
Can you hear me? I don't know if anyone can hear me.
Guys, can you hear Jordan? Jordan, do you know sign language?
No, unfortunately not.
Okay, it's really low. Let me. Thank you guys for waiting. We're. Okay. So what we. So can you hear this? Jordan, can you speak?
Yes, I can speak.
Not really. It's low, but
Okay.
I can hear.
Okay.
That's.
I'm just looking on my side if there's anything I can change on my side.
Okay, now it's loud. Somehow we got this to work.
Okay, this is good. Okay, so it's working.
Yeah. Okay. So ground rules again. I know that a lot of people have joined. This advice is endorsed by the individual, not the speaker. Again, um, no people were harmed during the making of this call. This is a safe space for all of us to learn. And then the last one, you know what? I'm gonna. Oh my god, I'm hearing myself twice. Okay. And so the last one is that Jordan has been part of the hiring process, and not necessarily the hiring manager, but he will put a lot of input into today's conversation. Are there? Oh, you know what? Can y'all hear now? Can y'all hear Jordan?
Hey.
I am. Don't worry. Look at this phone. It's like literally on top of my mic. Okay. Echo. Oh no. You know what? Guys, give me 1 minute. I'm gonna just adjust the volume. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties right now, but appreciate you being patient. Okay. Oh no. Can you hear Jordan now? Yeah? This audio capture. Yes, he's louder than you. No. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna give me 1 second, guys. I'm so sorry for all of this. We're gonna get this right next time, don't worry. And during the encore that Jordan will have, this will not be a problem. Volume mixer. How about now?
Hey.
He said, hey, hey. No? Oh. Yes. Oh my gosh! Woohoo, guys! We did it! All right. Let's get going. Jordan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. So first off, thank you both to Disclosed and yourself for hosting me on this. When you told me about this, I was very excited to be able to join and help, students and people who are interested in improving their resumes. I am a program manager, a business program manager at Microsoft. I'm specifically responsible for what is called business architecture. And it's really about thinking about how do we automate things consistently, how do we do our work scalably, and how do we capture tribal knowledge in a way that is scalable as well. And so if we have to, change something within the business, we're changing our direct, essentially changing the actual repository for knowledge, not having to influence a whole group of people. And so those are some of the issues I think about. That's why I'm responsible for at Microsoft. And that's kind of the brief. I went to the University of Nevada and moved to Reno, got a job at Microsoft, and haven't left since.
Cool. Thanks for that introduction. So, how about we go into the meat of this resume review session, where I've promised our viewers that you're going to screen share resumes and we're going to go through it together.
You never told me this. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Imagine if that was the case. Um,
Yeah. So do you want me to give kind of running commentary as I go through, or do you just want me to kind of just after I take everything in? I think
yeah,
running commentary would probably be the most helpful.
sure. Let's do that. Let's do
Okay.
that.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and to the audience, if you can let me know if when I share it, whether you can see it or not. So there we go. So let me know if you can see it.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, great. So this is the first resume that we have. All the names have been redacted, so hopefully no one has any anxiety if this is their resume. Okay, so just general thoughts that come to mind as I'm looking at this. I guess the first thing I would say is that I think that the career goal is really hard to write because they all end up sounding the same. And so when you have to review lots and lots of resumes, a lot of times there's stuff that won't stick out to anybody that's looking at them. And I would say actually a career goal is one of them. Unless if you have something really pithy to say, I would almost skip it. That's my opinion. I know somebody would have other opinions, but I hardly read the career goal because it usually follows the format of, I'm really good at this. I want to work for you, and because you're great. And that's that would just be my first kind of piece of feedback.
So, would you take it away? Just not have it?
I wouldn't have it. I think that your space could be used better with other things. And I'll actually go into this. I actually think this is actually a good portion to jump into something. Is that there's essentially 3 or 4, toll gates that a resume has to pass through. So you want to keep all 4 of these in mind. First, there's an automated kind of word matching, check. It will, a machine will read your resume and say, hey, does it match the keywords that we want for this requisition, this job requisition? And so sometimes your resume won't even make it to a person because you just don't have enough keywords. Mm-hmm. And so think about as you write your resume that it does have to get past a machine many times, especially if you're applying to a major corporation. Secondly, it goes to an HR person who's more or less reviewing it to see if you have the qualifications. So they're not really looking at it as as you as an individual, but more as you as a skill set. Then it comes to the hiring manager, and they will look at it to decide who they want to interview out of everyone HR puts past them. And they're going to be looking at you through skill set, personality. Are you a good fit for the team? A lot of other criterion. And then people like me who are not hiring managers, but will be in the interview process review and say, yeah, we actually think this person would really be worth interviewing, or we would use the resume to prepare for the interview, or both. So right there, those things you want to keep in mind as you're trying to balance multiple goals, like machine searches, getting an HR person to pass it to the hiring manager, and then a hiring manager with his or her team deciding whether they want to interview someone or not.
Cool.
So as I think about this, I think your words might be used better. I think there's better ways to convey who you are without stating this. And I maybe take it away, maybe not. Maybe you can find a way to rework it where it's more, it really hooks someone in. Right now, it's very generic. Okay, so this one I thought a lot about. So this this part here about the education, the first thing that says to me is someone puts their education first. It could mean that they're junior, which is not a bad thing at all. I want to emphasize that. But that's how a hiring manager might look at that, is saying, oh, well, they don't have a lot of work experience. And when you go down through this resume, you'll see that this individual doesn't have a lot of work experience, which it's not really a huge issue because everybody starts somewhere. This is the one piece I would point out that I would absolutely take away if you're applying to American companies. In certain contexts, I think high school matters. We've done a lot of interviewing in India for a team that we've been building for the last 6 months. And this is kind of the norm that we see in India, is that they typically do put high school down. United States, Canada, Europe, I'm less familiar with Europe, but as far as I'm familiar with, in high school, when I first looked at this, I said, why put the high school down? And then as I thought about it, I thought, oh yeah, well, our Indian teams that we hire for do commonly put that. So this is really like culturally, there's going to be a cultural context whether you include this. For American companies, for sure, don't put your high school down.
Cool.
So the only thing, like, this is, so I would work on, I think first off, what's really working well for this is you're starting out with verbs: contributed, led. I would start out with your strongest, your strongest verbs first, your strongest pieces of contributions that you made to a team, like leading, led the planning, input to creative teams. Like, this
What
is
is
a little
considered strong, Jordan? Like, what is a strong verb versus a more passive verb?
okay. So contributed is a very ambiguous verb to me, and I would say a kind of a weaker verb, because you're saying, okay, like, does contributed? I've been an intern before, so I know this kind of situation. Is like, contributed mean like I participated in the meetings, but I wasn't a decision maker? Does it mean that I did a lot of planning work? And so really think about what did you actually do? And what was your contribution? And so if you can lead with what you did contribute, that is a stronger way of saying that you contributed.
Gotcha. So let's
I-
take that. Let's actually take that. Let's say you were part of a meeting, and that meeting, the objective of that meeting was to come to a decision on the next step for a program. That was, this is, we're going to have buying power, we're going to select a supplier at this meeting. So, given that context, is there a better word than contributed?
Yeah, so I think one of the things is, like, let's say that you perform data analysis to help drive the decision. Say that. Perform data analysis, using such and such model, to help the team come up with a decision on what to do, something of that sort. Or let's say that this one here, let's just take this first sentence: contributed significantly to win 2 major pitches from Singapore government. What did you do? Did you edit the content that helped, that edited content help win win 2 major pitches? If you did that, then so what did you actually provide into it? For a hiring manager, they're going to see, okay, I know what this person is capable of, what they've done. Contributed is ambiguous.
Okay.
So I guess what I would say is, think about descriptive verbs, which are inherently stronger. Avoid ambiguous verbs. And what's going right here is that, at least I think at the very least, they're leading with verbs, which is, I think, always a good thing to lead with.
Great.
I'm not going to jump into too much into this. I think that, I made useful recommendation. I just say same thing. Like, how did you come up with a recommendation? And think about, what made it useful? What helped, did it lead to increase of adoption, or did it lead to increase of did it better something, or did you have some kind of measurement, or did you get anecdotal feedback? As long as you provide that, you can. I think it helps to articulate like, hey, this is my recommendations. My thinking actually leads to real world results. Um, so this is also a contextual thing as well. Is really think about the length of your essay. Be mindful that the people on the other side. This is also a cultural thing, so this could be different in India or it could be different in Europe. Typically in the US and Canada, one page is about the standard. There's flexibility in that, so I'm not dogmatic about that, but just remember the person that's reading your resume, whether it be an HR person, a hiring manager, or someone on the team like me, there are people and they get bored and they have to read through lots of resumes. So try to make it interesting and don't make it too long. Obviously, that makes you think about really the content that's really important to put in there.
Okay. If I
I
may
can,
ask, do you want to skim through the second resume as well?
yes,
For
yeah.
the sake of time.
Okay, yeah. Last thing, just on this one, don't this is I like this. I'm very mixed on this. So I liked it and then I didn't like it. So think about how to express yourself through your resume rather than maybe outright stating it. Okay, this one I was very impressed with, and it's not because I'm Microsoft biased. Hopefully, it's not. I promise that it's not. It started out with really, I think, strong verbs. Like facilitate it could be at first like you know sound like a kind of a weaker verb until you actually getting to like, hey, this led to a $1.1 million deal in FY20. I think this is wonderful. Managed an 8-member customer engineering team. Like you start getting a sense to, okay, yeah, they have some management skill. They can lead a team. They're in sales. It looks like really good format. I mean, it's a basic format, but there's nothing wrong with basic. It's very clear. Things that stick out in this one is like co-founder. Definitely grabs my eye, and you see, oh wow, they had 5-day virtual masterclass program teaching vocal mastery to 250 plus students. It's like quite impressive. And so what I would summarize my feedback on this one is it's very numbers driven. You can see that you can always kind of see the outcome, like, hey, I facilitated this and it led to this. I did or if it's not leading to the outcome, it's showing that how large or at what scale they were working. So this was an excellent resume in many respects. When you come to the key words around skills, also very good. Like these are things that a machine would pick up. If I was going to be nitpicky, I would like to know how well, like as a human reader, not a machine reader, how well can you use SQL? Are you advanced, basic? These things kind of matter. And this is a differentiation between a business job and a tech job. A tech engineering job at Microsoft, you're going to get tested on your skills. Business job, we're not going to see how good your SQL skills are. So as you make your resume, if you're going for a business side or, just call out what you believe your level of expertise in that is. I prefer that you don't have acronyms. Even if it's very common acronyms, I would say spell that out. That might just be nitpicky, but I think it looks better on a resume. This I went back and forth on. I thought this was very interesting. I don't know if I would ask about this. I don't know if it would tie me in because I feel like I'd get a very well curated story, which I always like trying to get uncurated stories. But I liked it. I liked it for it. I did think about it a lot, so it at least made me think about the resume. The only thing I would say about this, the last thing, maybe in a bit of a critique, is that it's very crunched. It's a lot of content, very crunched. You could maybe space it more, figure out if there's things that are less relevant to put in.
Great.
Okay, then I'll go to this resume. Again, same comment is here. A lot of people say they're organized, creative. It's hard to make introductions sound non-generic because you end up sounding like everybody else. So think about this. I'm not for them, but if you really feel attached, really try to do a good job writing this to hook someone in. This doesn't really hook anyone in at the beginning. This is really helpful. I mean, I think it is helpful. I always go back and forth on the education, whether you should put it first or last. It, like I said, it does indicate sometimes that you're more junior. But what's also helpful about this is knowing someone has both a business background and an engineering background. And I think depending on the job you're going for, that can be super relevant. Also good on this, keep in mind, again, whether you're applying to a business job or engineering job, because a business job, we won't test you, but we do want to know how well you know this stuff. And then make sure you actually kind of tailor this toward the job that you're going for. If you were going for an operations job in Microsoft, Google Analytics, we probably wouldn't use. So tailor your skill set toward that. I've seen kind of funny stuff. People tell me that they're certified forklift operators on their resumes, and they're really skilled people, but it always makes me laugh when I see something like that. Nothing like this on this resume, but just a FYI. This is good. I think one of the strengths of this is, again, mostly begins with verbs. Always really think about your verbs. That's what I would say. It makes you stand out, and it, I think, engages people more. Also, like what I got from this is that you are in sales, and looks like you've done fairly well in sales. 15%, 10%. This is, these things would catch my eye immediately. The one thing is not bad about your resume, but you will definitely get questioned on in a interview, is why did you switch jobs so many times? There can be perfectly good reasons for that. Just think about it as you go. This person would need to think about that.
Ooh,
And I would
that's a very interesting question. So what is considered, if you in tech, it feels like it's common to switch jobs. What is considered like a eyebrow raiser,
if you're there less than a year, I would ask how much impact can you really give in a year.
Okay.
And but this is, yeah, I would say that if it's 3 years, nobody's going 2-3 years, no one's going to raise any eyebrows.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty old school about how I view things, and even that wouldn't raise my eyebrows. I know that people differ. I think being at a company a long time is a good thing. I know that's also old school as well. So
For sure.
I even for someone like me who takes an older view on these things, it wouldn't raise my eyebrows if you left in 2 or 3 years from a company.
Okay.
But anything less than a year, I think, is a safe thing that will bring that up. Okay, this is just to go through this. I really, really be very selective about the extracurricular activity you weigh on. This one was something I went back and forth on. I asked my one of the hiring managers here. They said they wouldn't even look at it. And so, could your space be used better? I personally, I didn't think this was very compelling. Unless if it's something that directly applies to the job that you're doing. Maybe you have volunteer experience doing something that you don't have work experience doing. I don't know. think about this one through. I think you could use your space a lot better. Um, and that's kind of my look at that. This resume was actually very fascinating to me. Much I liked about it. Some of it I don't know. This one, I would say this was the second one that actually I thought about the most. Probably because it's super easy to read. Um, I actually thought it was a very easy read, and my one of the hiring managers I know at Microsoft, I had them look at this, and they immediately picked up on this, and they said learning cool new technologies is not a job. And this is where it becomes very like, to me, that wouldn't be a big deal. But the hiring manager I talked to is like, well, that's not a job. Like learning cool technologies is a hobby. To me, it says your personality. And I bring this out is it just think about how you write things and how it might come off. And this is very much why you need to write a resume for a job specific, not just make a generic one and send it out. Mm-hmm. And this wouldn't be make or break. No one even the hiring manager that said that wouldn't not hire you because of that. So I just want to be very clear with that. And you would still get onto an interview. So with that being said, just I would worry least about that. What is really, I think, really good about this one is it is super clear that they have a combination of creative skills and technical skills. I thought they came through very clearly. I would say that if they could add more numbers around what was their impact.
What made it easy to read relative to the other resumes? It seems like there was a difference in font that they use, color scheme, spacing.
Yes. So these are different fonts as you move through the resume. Mm-hmm. So the header fonts are different than the fonts that they use to type the body. The colors makes it nice and easy to read. If you go up to the one, if you go through the ones that we looked at, like these are very crunched. And so this is easy to read, but it's less interesting.
Gotcha. Okay.
So actually, I thought this was actually very good because this is definitely a concern like many hiring managers have, and I thought this was good. This comes up quite a bit because sometimes it's very hard to know. Yes, altogether I thought was pretty good. Again, what might come up, like I said, is like nobody's going to ask you about switching your pole inspector job, or nobody's going to ask you about that, but they might ask you about, well, what's the aerospace scholar and why were you there? Well, you're there a fair amount. So any job short times and jobs you would have to answer to, but
it seems like if you were part of like one company, so if we go up to the poll job, would you care if this person had combined the two? They were part of the Department of Elections, and they combined the two, so it's more truncated. It gets to the point as to their impacts. And so now you have you might have a longer experience too.
Yeah, if it was only 1 month at a time, I would still split them up.
Okay.
I say default towards clarity on what you did rather than ambiguity. And actually, the last part of it is what I'll get to, which will make a lot more sense on what I'm saying. Okay, now this is probably the strongest feedback I'll provide on this whole call, and it's not a criticism. It is like you need to be clear on this stuff. So I do not know what BA in chemistry attendant means, and so if you mean that you went to the University of California, Berkeley, and you were in a BA program and you didn't complete, don't put a BA down. If you if you, because obviously you have years that you attend it, it looks like enough for it. I mean, it's a 4-year time period, more or less. So it looks like you could did a degree, but once you put attend it, I'm looking at like, well, did you get a degree or not? And if you get into an interview or you go through a background check and you don't have that degree that you put on your resume, I won't hire you.
Mm-hmm.
And this would be, and many of my colleagues would feel the same way. This since I don't know the people behind this, and I don't know if this is the case, so I'm not saying it's the case, but I'm saying if you really didn't get a degree, don't worry about it. That's nothing to be ashamed about. Just make sure you're very clear whether you have a degree or not.
So you're
And
right. Clarity over ambiguity, because right now it's not the lack of words that's confusing you. It's the fact that there's an extra word that it's not very common to see if you got a bachelor's. Is that
yes,
okay? Or if
and
you got, yeah.
in one thing I would say is this is very common within tech companies. Not this thing. I'll actually come back to that in a minute. But I didn't. So since I don't know anyone, this is one other thing I would have very, very strong feedback on. Is I've had resumes come through where they say that they worked for Microsoft, or their LinkedIn says they worked for Microsoft, but their resume says no, actually I worked for a contractor company. And those are two different things. You might work, there's a sense to which you're working for Microsoft as a contractor, but you're not a FTE. Microsoft doesn't cut your checks. And for something like that, I take a very strong stance that is lying. And I value honesty and I value clarity. And so if you're saying you work for Microsoft on your LinkedIn to make it look like you have achieved more than you have, but on your resume you're honest, or you lie on both, I would not hire you just out of that, no matter how good it was.
Gotcha. So, and this will probably be checked in the background check as well. So, even if your LinkedIn and your resume were, you worked for Microsoft but not a contractor, you will go through the same route where
Yes,
someone will find out. Okay.
yes, yes. And so these are like the two serious pieces of feedback. Like everything else, like listen to, take it in, maybe get someone else's opinion, think it through yourself. These are two I would recommend. Stay in clarity and default towards clarity and default towards honesty.
Yeah. Gotcha. So, one of the questions I like asking is before we had this call, I had people online vote as to what is the top reason that you or a screener, resume screener would reject a resume. A, lack of skill, B, lack of work experience, C, lack of uniqueness, or D, something else. What what would you feel like is the right answer? Or maybe it's a combination of all of them.
Like why I wouldn't
Why
hire
you
someone,
yeah.
or um
What would be the top reason, I guess?
I guess you're looking at it. I guess the two criterions that we look at as we evaluate candidates is, are they, you know, are they skilled for the job, or do they have the potential to be skilled? So it's not necessarily work
Mm,
experience. It's saying, do they show the aptitude to do the job? And so I think people get really focused on work experience, but work experience is kind of malleable.
yeah.
Um, and so it's, do they have the aptitude for the job? And you say, well, what's that? A combination of maybe work experience, skills, personality. I would say that we're more willing to, as a team, on my team, I would say that we're more willing to hire someone with less skill if they show a willingness to learn. And that can be demonstrated in all sorts of ways. It can be demonstrated in your extracurricular activities. It can be demonstrated by how your interview goes. It can be demonstrated through like, what were your interests, when you studied your degree for your degree, or that you are actively always kind of learning something, which you can see through education. Yeah, I would say, I think people think that there's some kind of scientific process behind it. And we're looking at it from like, it's always trade-offs. So it's not one thing that ruins someone, that they wouldn't get an interview or they wouldn't get past. It's always about thinking about the right balance of trade-offs and skills, experience, and their character would be a good way of putting that.
Cool. I see, Mao Mei, you've asked a question. I'm not too sure if I don't want to butcher it. Um, I'm gonna ask the second question. Does Actually, Mao Mei, do you mind clarifying your question before I ask? I have another question for you, Jordan.
Okay.
Um, what do you feel like I feel like it's not an easy journey to get where you are now. So I'm going to ask a question about you yourself. It's not an easy journey to get to where you are now. Tell me about the sacrifices or purposeful decisions you made to get to the point you are at now.
Yeah, I guess one of the things that really helped me, and this will sound kind of stupid, maybe, is I cut a lot of like TV watching out and video games out, those kind of things,
Oh,
and repurposed my time to actually read stuff. That really has helped. Um, in terms of working, is really not being afraid to, no matter where you work. So if you start out at an unknown company
Charging
somewhere,
battery.
don't think that that's a bad thing. And I would say always seek to take on hard projects and be the one who's willing to take on the challenges. It will make you uncomfortable, and you need to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And but those are the kinds of things that help you actually grow as a professional, and are the things that will help you ultimately move up in your career. So think about how you spend your outside of work time,
hmm,
and that doesn't mean it has to be all about work outside of work. It just means, hey, what I'm doing outside of work, is this really helping me am I being enriched as a human? And then inside of work, am I taking on big challenges and executing well?
gotcha. So let's say you have a hobby like woodworking, something random, not related to tech at all. So you're saying that even doing woodworking can help develop you as a person. Maybe you build the network around woodworking, you make guides for other people out there. You're developing yourself as someone else with a passion, but you're saying that that would potentially complement some of the work that you would be doing at Microsoft.
Yeah, I definitely would say that. And I would say actually things that have some sort of physicality to them, if you're a knowledge worker, is really important. So, get out there and learn how to garden, do woodworking, and you'll actually be amazed at how much you make connections. You'll be like, how much connections you make about solving problems because you're actually having to do it in a different context. So and then plus you're happier, which happy people are always you
Better
typically
to talk
better.
to. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
For sure. Um, one of I guess one is jumping back to resume. I'm sorry I like went back and
No,
forth.
that's fine.
Um, with regards to the resume, I wanted to know as part of this resume screening process, just so you guys know, viewers, each four of these resumes has an opportunity to meet with Jordan one on one. That would be a 30-minute session guaranteed with Jordan, and he would essentially be you can take this as a mock interview. You can use it as clarification on some of the points that he's made today. So, I guess, Jordan, I know you stopped sharing your screen, but how would you, I guess, if this were a real simulated environment where folks were actually applying for like, a role in your team in which you had direct not decision making, but you had input towards that decision for an interview, how would how would that look? Pass, fail, or how would that look in terms of the
Yeah,
output?
I'll share my screen again. I guess I would
Yeah,
prefer to stack rank them.
sure.
Um, so I can you see my screen again?
Yep.
Okay. So in so the stack ranking, I would actually say this is probably the best one out of all of it. And so this would be number one. Definitely would be interested in this person. Um, it's hard because none of these were written for operations. It doesn't look like. But if I had to say, okay, who do I think it seems like they have a lot of passion for what they do, seems to be doing really good work, I would do this one second.
Hmm.
I'm really interested in the first. I mean, like there's things that could have been done better on this resume, but
Yeah.
considering I'm really interested in how we develop new talent, and considering that this person that has just finished up college, I'd really want to look at them, especially because they've taken opportunities to develop through doing internships, and they've actually moved forward, and it's hard going from your bachelor's degree into the professional market. So this would be third. And then the last one would be this. And if it was a sales position, then I might move it up a little bit. It might go actually past the it would actually be ahead of the last resume that we interviewed or that we looked at. But if it was just solely from my opinion, this one was fourth. So
Okay, gotcha. Thanks for ranking them for me. And typically, when you have a stack of resumes, whether that be 100, 500, you're probably quite mindful of your time. You would allot a certain number of days associated for interviews. So you would essentially rank all 100, 500, and you would choose some from the stack to interview. So it's not pass or no pass. It would be, okay, well, I have some time dedicated for interviews. I'm going to choose the top 5 or top 10. Is that correct?
yeah, and so crazy stuff happens. This is not me, so this is not. But a hiring manager at a company told me one time they threw half of their resume. They had HR gave them a stack of resumes, and they just threw half in the garbage because it was too many.
Oh
And
no.
and so like just because so the moral of the story is this that's horrifying. But at the same time, like if you don't get a job, it's not because you're like a terrible like professional. It sometimes just has to do with how much workload a hiring manager has, and if they get 100 resumes, they don't have time to look through all of them. This is why very much trying to represent yourself to get the interview
Mhm.
it's not just a set of skills on the page. It's trying to represent who you are in a professional yet personal way.
Okay, gotcha. So I guess right now, I think there's been a lot of, so I guess in terms of next steps, Jordan and I will coordinate who will make it to the next round for the one-on-one. It'll probably be similar to the ranking that he has. So stay tuned for those who submitted your resumes, and there's going to be future events next week as the following weeks. It's going to be every Thursday at 4:15 p.m. So if you guys want to have chats with hiring managers, feel free to. Um, I did have a question on, I guess, about you yourself. I know
Mhm.
we're a little over. So, guys, if you need to hop off, do so. Jordan, do you have maybe 10 more minutes?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So, one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, what are the top 3 things you wished you did in college or grade school that could better prep you through corporate life?
Yeah, so I think that there's three top things I would think of. I think working on communicating to your audience is number one. Being able to speak well, being able to deploy words well,
Hmm.
um, is very crucial. But it's also about, when I say actually speaking to your audience, knowing what level to speak at.
Yeah.
And especially for in the more technical side, we tend to speak like tech language, and when you're talking to someone who's an executive, they have no idea what you're saying. So that would be one thing to keep in mind, is something that you need to cultivate. I would recommend cultivating as soon as possible, is being able to know your audience, know what level to speak at, whether it needs to be detailed or at an executive level. um, That would be number one. Number two is really around actually um, being actually reading broadly. We tend to read stuff that has come out in the last 10 years, read stuff that came out 400, 500, 1,000 years ago. And the reason why is that like we always like I think our generation likes to talk about like, oh, we like to explore new cultures and all this stuff. Well, reading old books, you get to explore tons of old cultures. They have their biases, but they don't have your biases, and so they kind of give you a new view on the world and give you a broader view on how to handle situations. And sometimes, and then you can get a lot of inspiration on how to be pithy in your opening resume statements. So that's something I wish I would have done earlier. I'm doing that now. I started in my later 20s and in my early 30s now, and so that's something I think I would have been greatly benefited by doing that earlier. Plus, it makes you, just as a short story, someone executive at Microsoft had a Plato quote, and it definitely did not sound like Plato, and it's not because I'm a Plato expert. I just have read enough ancient literature. I looked it up, and it was a fake quote, like that was made up, and I could just tell by reading it that it wasn't right, and so I got to make fun of this executive. Um, and then the last thing is, and this is actually just a really practical thing: learn SQL or SQL. Most businesses, like if you can do SQL, you'll be like, if you're not already a technical person, you want to go on the business side, learn SQL. If you're a technical person, don't know SQL, learn SQL. I can't tell you how many it's kind of a side thing. Also be good at Excel, but that's easier to gain. SQL is like, makes you a wizard. Like once you can do that, people are like, wow, you can do this. And it's really not that hard to learn. And I totally recommend doing that. It
Cool.
makes you, especially if you're working in a tech company, it makes you far more valuable. And people are always looking for people who know SQL.
Yeah, a lot of what you've said are skills that you wish that you knew going into industry, and you feel like even in industry, these are some of the books and empowerment tools that you feel are necessary to get promoted, recognized throughout in Microsoft. Um, Jake actually mentioned a pretty good one, networking. Okay, you mentioned that you probably have received hundreds of resumes throughout your career, and you've looked through them. What do you think about when look if you think about the holistic hiring process? A resume gets dropped into a black box that goes through ATS, that goes through HR, then it gets to you. What if someone were to reach out to you through LinkedIn and say, "Hey, Jordan, let's have a chat." What are your perspectives on that?
I actually people have reached out to me,
Yeah.
and I'm like always thrilled to talk to them. Maybe if I had like 500 people reaching out to me all the time, that would be a different story. But over the course of last year, I think I had like 5 or 6 people reach out to me. And some were directly looking for a job and wanted to know more about working at Microsoft. And some were just saying, hey, like, how do you move up in your career? I think that's really good. I think I do like the networking aspect. Um, and I would just say one of the things that you're better off, like, there's these like kind of contrived networking things. Like there's hopefully the Reno Young Professionals don't hear this, but there's a group called Reno Young Professionals, for example. And I went, and every day is there to network. I find that actually joining nonprofit groups or doing things for the community is a better way to network than joining a group specifically meant for networking. It seems very artificial to do that. I find it more practical to, if you live in the Reno area, keep Truckee Meadows beautiful. Do something with them and learn about your community, meet other people, be enriched by that, and the networking will come.
Cool. So it seems like networking doesn't happen just through LinkedIn. Maybe you can join some clubs. I know, Jordan, you mentioned you were part of a local community as well, right?
Yeah, yeah. So
So, mhm.
I think there's different categories. There's clubs that are meant for networking, which I highly discourage. Sorry, anybody on the call that likes those. I didn't like it. I would not go to one. Um, the ones that are, you have people in industry I have that you work with that are not the same company. There's a lot of people in industry that are actually I've been to their weddings, and because we've been that close. And so you have that kind of networking, and then the third kind of networking is just actually being involved in your community. LinkedIn is very helpful, but LinkedIn doesn't replace networking
Yeah.
in a lot of ways. So nothing actually replaces the real relationships that you develop either in industry or in your community.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Just for clarification, guys, I actually met Jordan through LinkedIn, and we had a couple of calls, really long calls, where I wish that we kind of recorded it because it was awesome. And then it kind of became something like this where we can share some of our stories with you guys. So don't be afraid to ask for networking opportunities through messages if you feel like they can help you through your career, and vice versa. What if, Jordan, what if someone came to you and said, well, I want to learn about you, but how can I help you? How would you feel? How would that make you feel?
Do you know magic tricks? If you know magic tricks, you will definitely, I will definitely help you with anything. That's a skill I'm
Guys,
trying to
learn
learn.
magic.
So, no, realistically, like, I'm more interested in who you are
Yeah.
and getting to know you. And so I don't, the kind of quid pro quo stuff, um, like maybe like if you can maybe help me on a project, like I might ask you, but like I just actually would like to know who you are, and if there's something I can help you with, I'm usually more than willing to do so.
Yeah. Um,
And I
yeah.
actually think I actually do want to make an emphasis on this, is that we're always so scared to ask people, but more people are actually willing to help you. Like you just came to me blindly, and I could have been like, no, but I was like, I hardly know anybody that will. I've made a lot of friends at the University of Cambridge
Hmm.
just by calling them up and saying, hey, can you help me with this? And they're like, oh, you're interested in what I do, and they're like don't exercise that too much, like, but if you really do need help, most people are willing to help you.
Gotcha. Um, Bowden asked, do you count an email that magically appears in your inbox as a magic trick?
It has to be a pretty spectacular email.
Ooh. So Bowden, to your question, it depends. Just so you know, I do want to give granular, I guess, advice for those who are looking to network. Um, how I approached Jordan was, hey, I saw you work at Microsoft. I want to connect given your experience at Microsoft. What drives you to stay at Microsoft? And then we actually just talked about Microsoft. And that was it. And it was just me picking his brain as to what makes a good business manager. So it was solely for the sake of learning, and we had a lot of reasons to get back together, because we had a lot of topics to discuss. But that's the beauty of just learning what it means to be at Microsoft. And a lot of people I feel like would be open to talking about what drives them to do certain tasks, because Jordan, you're quite passionate to be at Microsoft.
Yeah, no, it's a great company to work for. I was actually driving this morning, like being very thankful for working at the company. They treat us really well. The
Hmm.
culture is amazing in so many respects. It's one that's built on helping each other. There's obviously competitive aspects, but that's with anything, and it's done in such a way that it's not this kind of crass, like Gordon Gecko sort of thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, I really like the company. I would encourage anybody to come to work for Microsoft. Um, and I am really, I guess, if you're going to ask me like why I would choose Microsoft over another tech company, so Microsoft is an older tech company. Obviously, there's older ones like IBM, but Microsoft and Apple have a real concern for keeping people's information private. This is not really shared by our newer tech companies. Google and Facebook don't have the same regard for privacy of people. And I think it's just really important that we think about, our own information as being valuable, and find companies to work for and support with our time and money, that actually value our information because it's worth something. And not having it out there for everything is also worth something as well. So that's kind of my pitch, but it's very much centered around stuff I think is important, which is, privacy concerns.
Cool. All right, guys. I know we're a little over time, 15 minutes over time. I really appreciate having you there, Jordan. Um, I know, Malme, I didn't answer your question. I'm going to take a look at that a little more and let's have a post around it. Specifically, your question. I'm going to try to understand a bit more and ask for Jordan's input. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of
Take care,
course.
everyone.
Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks, guys. We really appreciate you being here. Just remember that next week. I love that. Okay, next week we actually have another one. It's actually gonna be for meat at GlaxoSmithKline. We have one at Johnson and Johnson. We have another one at Citi. And guys, we also have one for Nvidia, Facebook, Genentech, and Intuit next month. So there's going to be a lot of exciting stuff we're going to talk about. I know Jordan's not here, that's why I didn't want to talk about Facebook. But tune in it's going to be every Thursday. So remember to sign up. People who have submitted the resumes, I'm going to contact you one-on-one and we'll set something up with Jordan and you guys. Honestly, I want all four of you guys to get a one-on-one with Jordan. I'll do my best to get you guys secured. So I'm here for you guys, and all right, take care. I'll see you next week.
Human, maybe on the night we can prove it. We can prove it. Baby, we can do it. Issues that we have, let's get through it. We were so good, let's resume it. Maybe on the night we can prove it.
Hate it when you leave. Didn't leave a thing. You had it out of me, making me feel so cold. Afraid of being alone when I'm next to you. You made me feel alive. Now that I'm left without you, let you make me feel. You made me feel. I just made you feel. You feel so good. Did you ever think we were ever a thing? 'Cause you don't make me feel so good. I don't mean to be, don't mean to be rude, but did you ever think when you left me? When you're so alone, were you ever free? 'Cause everybody knows how you've been feeling lonely. You wasted all my time thinking you would see. She ever made you feel like you're always wanted. Let you make me feel. You made me feel. I just made you feel. You feel so good. Did you ever think we were ever a thing? 'Cause you don't make me feel so good. I don't mean to be, don't mean to be rude, but I just made you feel so light enough.